Welcome to the Existential Empath Podcast. My name is Tanya, and I am an intuitive empath. My intention is to share valuable tips, tools, and techniques that I have learned so you can tap into your own inner healer naturally and intuitively. Welcome back, everyone. Today I have a special guest. I have Karen Cleveland. Karen is a minister, animal communicator, and spiritual mindset and connection coach who helps people achieve their dreams by implementing the power of the mind, the body, and the spirit. Karen is passionate about connection, whether it's with animals, God, the universe, or even money. She shares the message that it's all interconnected. Karen is also the host of the Connectedness podcast, where she uncovers how coincidences, synchronicities, and even mundane moments of everyday life are all related. Welcome, Karen. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Looking forward to talking all about what we get into here.
Absolutely. So you and I, we're going to talk about tuning in to the wealth within and how we can align with financial abundance. And so, Karen, you talk a lot about the invisible threads and how everything is interconnected. And you believe, which I do as well, that everything is related. And when we understand these connections, we can live happier and more fulfilling lives, right? And so I want to talk about how our finances are connected to everything else in our lives. But first, can you explain what the connectedness of life actually is?
Well, I'll try. That might be $1 million question. But like you were saying, it's kind of the invisible threads that we don't even know are there, but yet they connect everything. So it's like you knowing who's at the other end of the phone before you even answer it, and before caller ID and before special rings, right? So back in the day when the phone would ring and we could get an idea of who it was before we even answered it, or it's the underlying, basis of how you can be thinking about and a long lost friend, and all of a sudden they pop up in a week or, in a day. And it's like, I was just thinking about you. That's so weird. So it's all these little things that we think are so weird, or these little coincidences that seem unrelated. And I will say perhaps they are unrelated sometimes, but, finishing your significant other's sentences, or knowing that something is wrong with someone, even if they're not in the same room as you, just getting a sense of something's not right with them, or your pet, getting a sense of something. So as you said, it's kind of that invisible connection. There's something we can feel or sense, or even hear sometimes if we're paying attention. And I just, that's what I call God. I'll just say that I just say it's everything, and it's the connection of everything.
Absolutely. And I have those things happen to me quite often. I think I've always had those things happen. I always noticed I would finish people's sentences, and I'm like, why do I do that? And I had to kind of teach myself to be quiet, because I almost felt like I was interrupting people. But I think it was like I was 10 steps ahead, and I already kind of knew what was going to be said.
Right.
And I've learned, now it's like, oh, Tanya, quit finishing people's sentences. But it's funny that you said that, because that was something I definitely recognized, and I can do that too. And I'm sure you can. You think of someone and then boom, they reach out, and you're like,
and they're there.
How did that happen? And so, Karen, but how does money connect to all of this? It's like, and I love talking about money. Like I said before we started recording, anytime I can get a guest on that we can talk about abundance, prosperity, money and spirituality, and that connection, I love to have them on. So how does money fit into this puzzle?
Yeah, great question. So we usually think, or many of us think, that money just simply represents, an exchange of goods or services, right? So it's an object, it's out there, and it's not really anything that we're connected to. And so as long as we keep it out there, then it is going to feel separate from us. And it means that if we are feeling that we don't have enough, or we're lost, or there's some kind of a limitation, and it seems so elusive to us, it's because we aren't feeling in the connection. So maybe I can explain this a little bit better. When we do feel like we're living and understanding our connection with, you know, the person next to us, the animal down the block, the tree, you know, around the world, when we start to realize that there is a connection, eventually I believe it leads to us believing or understanding that everything's going to be okay, that there are natural rises and falls in life, you know, the order of balance and harmony. Things go and they come back and they, you know, they sway back and forth, but they're always going to be okay. So if we can understand that money is also one of those things that it's part of the energy system too. And if we feel like it's not part of our system, if it feels like it's out there, anytime anything is out there, there's a chance for fear, for lack, for even idolation, you know, just worshiping money and wanting it. So it's really kind of hard to get sometimes that it's not really separate from the connection. And once we start to get there, then money, not that you don't ever have money problems again, but you don't worry about them because it's all going to be, basically it's all going to be okay. That's kind of my thing, is it's all going to be okay. Let's just figure out how to get through
more
this.
than enough. That's what I always say. We always have more than enough.
Yeah. Well, you know, actually, it's funny you say that, because for a long time, you know, I didn't think I had enough. And I finally got to the place of doing affirmations and different things that money comes easy to me was my mantra and my truth. I finally understood it was my truth. And even today, when I feel like, oh my gosh, you know, what's this bill? Or how come I have less money than I thought? It's like, oh my gosh, oh no. And then it's like, oh wait, money comes easy to me. I know it does. I know it does.
Ooh, I
So
just got goosebumps. I know it does. I could feel that connectedness.
yeah, yeah. So, you know, that doesn't come overnight always, but maybe sometimes for some people it does.
Yeah. And I've been doing that too. I'll take morning walks and I put in my headphones and I'll listen to affirmations, but I'll also in my conscious mind say affirmations. And I was playing around, it's probably a week or two ago, with I always find money on the ground. I love finding money on the ground. And I probably walked for about 30 minutes. I kept saying that and I was putting emotion behind it and I was really feeling it. Well, I didn't find money on the ground that day, but 2 days later, I actually went on a hike with my friend in this park in the middle of, an area where there would be no money on the ground, well, as I'm walking, this dollar bill just shows up in front of my feet. She made that comment. It kind of looked like that was just kind of there for you and just tossed in front of you. And I said, I manifested that. I actually created that. And so, Karen, I want to talk about, as we begin to expand our consciousness, and many of us have a hard time building that relationship with money. And as we begin to remember that we're spiritual beings, we have a hard time figuring out how money kind of fits in with spirituality. And this was something that I struggled with. So why do you think that we have a tendency as humans to kind of categorize money more with the ego aspect than more with our divinity and our right to be abundant, right?
Yeah, I think several reasons, tradition, culture, certainly stories from our parents and grandparents and our society. But I think the bottom line is we're not looking at money as a form of gratitude. So if you're giving me money, really, you're kind of thanking me for giving you some kind of product or service. Mm-hmm. And I think if people can, even with debt, so debt has such a heavy, feeling about it sometimes, even if we can begin to thank Chase for allowing us to take that trip or allowing us to, buy those groceries or whatever it was. If we can start tying gratitude to these things, and certainly money. So thank you for letting me, buy whatever it is I'm buying, or thank you for the service you gave me. Here's your money, or here's my money. I think as soon as we can begin to look at it as not something that's so hard to come by, and start treat it with a little more gratitude, I think things start shifting then.
Yeah. And, I've noticed that in my life. I had that limited belief that money was hard to come by. You had to work really
Yeah,
hard to,
absolutely.
right? And I'm sure maybe you had that too. I know a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of the people I work with. And so I had to work on reframing that money comes to me easily and
Yeah.
effortlessly. And a lot of it is just reprogramming myself. And then I don't know about you, but when I begin to feel that something is normal, that's when it actually starts manifesting in my life. Like when I actually start to
Yes.
feel, oh yeah, that's coming in. I know that's here.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about that? Because that's something that I've been experiencing lately.
I agree. I think you have to get to the place of knowing that it's true for it to be true. So what do they say? You have to see it to no, you have to believe it to see it. I
Mhm.
don't know. Anyways, I totally believe that you're right. There's like we have to go through hope and then belief and then knowing, and it's like, yeah, that is
And
my truth.
assuming.
Actually, I don't remember who said it. I just read it in a book recently. It might have been Jack Cornfield, but I don't know. But he said, the affirmations are so that we believe it is the truth of us, not that we make it the truth. So we're not making it happen. It's just so we finally adopt that truth.
Yeah, and that we believe that it's like
Yeah.
reconnecting those neural pathways or,
Yeah.
reprogramming those neural pathways. And I think too, that's why I like to listen to affirmations and then state them, different ones at the same time. It's almost like, I laugh like when I try to trim my cat's nails, I have to shove a toy in his face with catnip so he is distracted so I can trim his nails, right? And you
Right.
would probably,
Right.
resonate with that as an animal lover, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel like as I listen to this, my subconscious is hearing the affirmations, and then my conscious mind is staying busy with my own affirmations. And I notice that actually makes things go faster, at least in my reality. It's like, okay, I am, just really trying to, working on creating that coherence between the
Mhm.
conscious and the subconscious. And so, Karen, you've been teaching financial freedom and self mastery classes for more than 7 years. Now, seven, I saw that number and I thought that is not a coincidence. 7 years, right?
Yeah. I
And so,
know. It's true.
yeah, that's an awesome number. That's a great number. I play this lotto scratch off called Lucky Sevens, and I always win on Lucky Sevens. There's something with that number seven that is really lucky for me. And so, you've created these awesome tools and methods that have actually shown tangible results. And so, many of us, like we talked about, are carrying these limited belief systems
Mhm.
around money, like how much money we can make, how
Yeah.
we make money, how does money come into our lives. And so, Karen, how do we first discover we even have limiting beliefs around money? And then how do we overcome them?
Oh, well,
Or
yeah.
in your experience, how have you done this?
Sometimes it's quite by accident we discover we have a limiting belief. Someone says something, we don't even realize it. But to actually intentionally find out what our beliefs are, I think there's several methods. One of them I like to do, a short and easy one, I guess, is when you say, I live in a big, beautiful lake house, something like that. What are the things that come up? What are the buts? It's like, oh, but I don't know how to do that. I'll never make that happen. All those things. And so those are some kind of a story that we believe. But another way is if you actually want to dig down deeper, when you come up with that, I live in a big, beautiful lake house. What are the reasons that the benefits to not living in that lake house? So what's the benefit to staying where you are? Because those are all stories or assumptions that we have.
You might
And
get
what's the
flooded.
downfall to actually moving into that affirmation that we want, that we think we want? We think we want it so bad, but yet we continue to tell ourselves for whatever reason. So the benefits to staying where we are, the downfall, to actually doing it, those tell a lot about what our stories are. And so I know you do EFT. That's
Mhm.
one of my favorite methods to get rid of a story.
It's very
Um,
effective. Yes.
very effective. But I also think we can, for some people and for some stories, it kind of depends on the story and the person. Some stories can be argued away, like, well, wait a minute. Other people live in beautiful lake houses. Why can't I? What's the difference here? And, I don't make enough money. Well, why can't I make more money? So if you're an argumentative type person or a logic person, that might help as well. And definitely affirmations. I think affirmations done correctly, which means they speak to your soul when you say them, I think they are very effective. Eventually, it might be in a day and it might be in 2 months, but isn't 2 months better than never?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. And I like saying mine out loud because I do feel, our thoughts are electric, our emotions are magnetic, and when we speak it, it amplifies it. So I love being able to say them out loud and then seeing how my body feels after I say it. It's like, is there restriction in that after affirmation? Okay,
Right.
where is that restriction and where is that coming from? One of my biggest obstacles was I associated lots of money with having to be seen. I was afraid of being seen. And so I thought, if I make lots of money, I have to be seen. And I don't want to be
Right.
seen, because I was 5'11" and I got picked on a lot because I was too tall Tanya in school, so
Oh,
I would kind of try to shrink down a little bit. And so mine actually wasn't even really pertaining to my parents' belief systems. It was something that I had created as a child, and then just removing or eliminating that block of, I can still make money and not have to be seen,
yeah.
and then I can clear that block of, why am I afraid to be seen? Why am I afraid to shine my light and to be vibrant, And
Yeah.
so I would have never I actually stumbled upon that one in a meditation. I was like, and I could feel it in my body, like, ooh, this is a sore spot here. This is a raw
Right.
area. I need and I used, like you said, the EFT tapping and really moved through that. And it was funny because after I cleared that, I boom, 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 I got clients lined up and I'm like, oh, I just cleared something. And so it's kind of funny how when it's almost like it's a dam, right? Like if you think of a water dam and then you open that up, it's got all these
Yeah.
things hanging out behind
Yeah.
the dam. And the
Yes.
moment you open it, it comes flooding in.
Exactly. It's like our good is just waiting for us to clear some of this mindset trash that we go through. Absolutely. And once we get through one level, there's always something else, but you cleared the way one way, something else will come up later, but
Yeah. But that's okay. That's
yeah,
okay. And you'll probably be better at clearing it too. I know that's been my experience.
yeah.
It used to be hard for me years ago. And now it's like, oh no, I see you. I recognize you. And we're going to move you right on through.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. I guess we get skilled at it. We learn how to recognize it and learn how to deal with it faster.
Yeah. And so, Karen, I talk a lot about on the show how to listen to your body, how to listen to your inner voice, how to tune into your own internal guidance system, your intuition, in an effort to align so you can heal, you can live the life that you deserve, right? So
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about, how can we recognize the signs that we're in misalignment with financial abundance? And then I also want to talk about how we can recognize when we are in alignment with financial abundance. So let's start off with misalignment first. Let's talk about, in your experience, how have you known that you're in misalignment with your divine prosperity?
Yeah. Well, for me personally, one key thing I do is I honestly feel like going and sticking my head in the sand. So when either a certain bill has to be paid or a certain thing has to be purchased, or if I have to look at my bank account for some reason, it's like complete avoidance. Don't want to do it at all. But so perhaps some of your listeners already know, but it's important to learn what your body is telling you is good and what is telling it that is not good, for you. And so when you're making that purchase, or when you're contemplating something financial, whether it's, a loan or debt or some kind of income, how you're making your money, I think it's really important to pay attention to how we're feeling about it, and to learn, do exercises so that we're always learning the truth of our body. But if it doesn't feel good in our body, to look at the bank account, to do anything that has to do with finances. And I know it's such, we don't talk about money as a society.
Mm.
So it's such a taboo thing that it's hard to get used to talking about it. And the other thing is, especially as women, we're not we might think we're not good with money, but it's only because we haven't been taught, it's not something you come born with typically.
Yeah.
We all have to learn something. But anytime we're working with a money situation, check in. And if it's not feeling good, and look at the signs, are there, I think, and maybe I'll talk about them in a few minutes, but I think outward as well, coincidences and signs and things that come up that might raise suspicion for us because of all the interconnectedness that I like to talk about. If we're doing something against our highest good, our better good, something's going to try to divert us away at some point, whether we listen or not, that's entirely up to us. We all have free will. But again, do you feel sick? Do you feel happy? Did you break your leg? Do you have a headache? How's the body feeling?
Yeah. That's a huge indicator, is how are you feeling? And are you trying to kind of, shove a round peg in a square hole? I mean, I know that's been an experience for me, especially with this podcast. It's kind of funny. I'll book guests, and then maybe a day or two ahead of time, I will start to feel, oh, I'm not sure that this guest it's the right time. And then they'll reach out and say, hey, can we reschedule? And it's been really funny where you're talking about that interconnectedness. We're both kind of picking up that, hey, we're not on the right frequency yet, and we might need to reschedule it. And
interesting.
Yeah. And I kind of just feel that, like, there's just this intuitive knowing that this guest will be on my show. It's just maybe they've got a lot going on in their life right now, or maybe something is going on, and it won't be the same message coming through that it could be if they work through some of their things. And so I love that you brought up to listen to your body, especially when it comes to making purchases. I had to fix my brakes on my Toyota, and it was going to be like $400, and I'm like, oh, this kind of stinks. I have to shell out all this money. Well, the funny thing is, I was doing affirmations about how I always receive unexpected checks in the mail. I love receiving unexpected checks. Well, I ended up receiving an unexpected check from a Toyota settlement for $200. So I ended up paying for half of what I needed it to pay for. And it came in the same week, which was really funny. And so I thought, if I can manifest that, then what else can I manifest? And then that's when I found the money on the ground. So I think if we really have fun with it, and, maybe you can talk a little bit about this too, when you're in a joyful state and when you're feeling that freedom, that happiness, that, that gratitude, how much quicker things will come to you. Have you had that experience?
Oh, yeah.
Where you've manifested faster in the joy state?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I completely believe this is how I tell people. So here's the tip for everyone right now.
Share your tips, Karen.
Begin any affirmation, begin any meditation, visualization, whatever you're doing, with 17 seconds of joy. So laugh or remember something that made you laugh, a situation with girlfriends. I usually bring to mind my crazy dog when he didn't want to take a bath, and he'd want to play chase and get away. And so just bring to mind 17 seconds of joy, whatever it is, anything that makes you smile, makes you laugh, and start from that place, because that is your divine natural state, right? So you're tapping in before you even get to, your affirmation or your visualization or whatever it is. Just start from that state, because then everything that you do is going to be from, whatever naturally is yours. So yes, and absolutely, things do tend to come faster, cleaner, I guess.
Yeah.
When you're living from that.
More in alignment. I know, I like spending time in nature, living here, you're in Washington State and I'm just across the border here in Idaho. And so I love spending time in nature, and I know that my frequency is high when I'm in nature. So that's when I'm really, resetting those neural pathways. It's like, okay, now's the time for me to really focus on, this. And even if it's in the background while I'm hiking, just, I can feel that on autopilot. And so those were some of the ways that we can tell we're misaligned, but I want to talk about the ways, which is the fun part, right?
Yeah.
Of how to know when we're aligned. And you talk a lot about synchronicities and coincidences and all that kind of stuff, which I do too. So let's dive a little bit into that, Karen, and how we know when we are aligned with our financial abundance.
Yeah, absolutely. So like we were saying, or I was saying, we were both talking about earlier in the show. So the connection that we're connected with everything, but not only me and you and the animals and the trees. Excuse me, losing my voice suddenly.
That's
But
because it's an important message. Sometimes that happens to
exactly.
me too.
But I guess you can call them guides or angels, or our higher self is also trying to help us recognize when we're on the right path or not on the right path. So they try to get our attention. And I think a coincidence can be a coincidence and random, and it doesn't mean anything, but we don't know it if we don't look at it. And when things start to happen in patterns, I think it's when there's patterns of people, numbers, incidents, cars, patterns of something that we really should pay attention. And when we see the pattern, do we feel good or do we not feel good about it? Because that's important too. And as I was saying earlier about, it's like checking in with the body. Does it feel good? I know I completely ignored my body for most of my life. I didn't know what I felt. But once you begin to learn how you feel, then you can use it as your navigation for what's in alignment, what's not in alignment. And the coincidences, I mean, I think it's super fun to talk about because there's so many things that have lined up, and it's like, that's impossible to be random. It's completely impossible to be random, and it feels good and it's exciting. And I think it's because it lets us know we're not alone and that we're on the right track. And it's like, yes, I'm doing the right thing. I knew I was doing the right thing. So, so again, looking for signs, what do you see out there that is reflecting back, so I kind of have a visual like this. So imagine I'm holding a hula hoop. So it goes through my body. So what I'm expecting in my outward world, and, in the outward world is reflecting what I'm expecting, but also, everyone else's stuff, and it comes back and what am I seeing? So it's kind of a continuous circle, is what I'm seeing, what I'm expecting. And, or are there like breaks in the hula hoop that are kind of jarring when I'm not in alignment?
Yeah.
Yeah. So am I feeling that everything is congruent? And that what I see out there is what I expect to see for what I think, the path I think I should be on, or what I intend to be doing. So I might have strayed a little bit from financial abundance per se, but
no, I
but
love
I
that
think
because it's all interconnected, right?
absolutely, absolutely it is. Yeah. So
Yeah.
when we recognize those things that, we will fall, I don't want to say we will fall into it, but it will be easier for us dealing with our mindset as well, but easier for us to recognize our own financial abundance.
Absolutely. And, I'm a firm believer of the synchronicities. I mean, I moved across the country from Florida to the Pacific Northwest off of the number 444. It was just obnoxious how many times I was seeing this number. And I mean, I can't even tell you the number of synchronicities that I was having with just this number alone, but it's a number that I know in my heart of hearts, I'm on the right path. When I see that number, and if I'm not seeing it for a while and I feel a little lost or a little out of place, I'm like, how do I get back into alignment again? And then once I do, boom, this number just starts popping up on the clock. It's popping up on license plates. It's all just randomly, everywhere. And so I'm sure you've had those experiences too. And like we talked about, it could be anything, animals, numbers, words.
And actually, I have experiences with 444 too, because and exact the same thing. It's like, okay, I'm on the right path. I met a man in Kenya and married him, and the whole time before he came to the United States, it was like, I don't know. you know, my guidance kept telling me, yes, 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 yes. I kept seeing the fours, but it's like, this seems so far-fetched. I don't
I
know.
know. You're like, I'm really relying on fours to marry someone and to move across the country. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
are we crazy,
Exactly.
Karen? Like, what's
Well, we're happily crazy if we are, right?
I know it's funny because when you first start recognizing the synchronicities, you're like, it's like you want to rub your eyes. Like, am I
Yeah,
really seeing that?
yeah,
And I don't know about you, but I've actually noticed where I've looked at the clock and it'll say 4:45, and in my mind I'll say, "Oh, I missed it," and then it'll
right.
go back right before my eyes and say 4:44, and then click to 4:46, and I'm like, "Did I just create that? Like, how did that happen?"
Yes. Yes, that's awesome. Yeah.
It
Yeah,
just
so
shows you how we
signs are
create
out
our own
there.
reality.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, just look and you will find. Look and you seek and you will find, right?
Absolutely. And so just following those synchronicities and having fun with it. I I I always joke that my higher self is like Bumblebee on Transformers, the yellow car that plays music. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but he comes through and plays music, and I will hear music lyrics in my head, and it's really
Mm,
funny because it will guide me along my path, and I know, okay, I'm hearing this song over and over. Why am I hearing this song? And so then I realize, oh, I'm on the right path. And so those are ways that I know my synchronicities come through as well, is just random lyrics in my head that it's not like it happens once. This is like repetitive for days. And I'm like, okay, why is this happening?
so you figure it out through the songs? Because yeah, I used to wake up with a different song every morning and it's like, but I never recognized that that was quite a long time ago. Any, you know, signs from them.
Signs from
I
them.
should have looked better.
Well, and sometimes you got to look into the lyrics. Maybe they give you the title of a song, and then you're like, it's like guided to go look. It's like
Right.
when someone gives
Right.
you a Bible verse number, and you're like, okay, what's that mean? And then you go open the Bible, and you're like, oh, okay, that
Yeah.
applies to
Yeah.
me.
That's
But I
true.
I did a whole show on how, many of the lyrics in songs kind of guide us down the wrong path because we want to
Mm,
sing them over and over, and sometimes it's
right.
bad lyrics. So I've gotten to a tendency where I started to create my own lyrics, and I don't even remember what some of the lyrics of songs are anymore. But sometimes they will come through loud and clear, and I'm like for example, I kept seeing 444. This was recently, maybe a few weeks ago, and I would point and laugh. I'm like, oh, I hear ya. I hear ya. And then I heard the song from like the 80s or 90s. I saw the sign.
Oh
It
yeah.
opened up my eyes. I saw the sign. And it kept going over and over in my head. I'm like, really? Okay, I got it. I saw the sign. I saw the sign.
That's funny. So I had Sirius in my car at one point and I was contemplating something in my head, I don't know. And the radio was turned down, but I could see it was reading oh, it was Jack FM. We play what we want. So it said we play what we want and then it said nothing else matters. It's like, that's right, nothing else matters.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And that's funny because sometimes it'll come across your screen like that on your car. You may not hear the lyrics, but you read the
Yeah.
phrase or whatever. So
Yeah.
there's so many ways that they can come through. And so, Karen, you're also an animal communicator, and I am as well. This was something I could do as a child, and then I got picked on in school because I talked to squirrels and whatever, and then I kind of branched away from that. But now in my 40s, I'm actually starting to relearn that or remember
Nice.
that I can do that. And so,
Yeah.
I had a kind of a funny question. Can our pets, living or deceased, help us find our way, help align us or help us find that way to financial abundance?
Well, you know, I think so. And I have, I'll try to make it a short story. If we're, first of all, let me say, if we're trying to tell the universe what we want. So I want that, you know, instead of saying, oh, I hate the stupid old shack that I live in, right? Because the picture created is a shack, and that's not the picture we want to put out there. So we want to start saying to ourselves, oh, I live in this big beautiful house, I love my big beautiful house, right? But if we then say, I love this big beautiful house, oh, what am I doing? That's crazy, I'm never going to like that. The animals, our pets, are going to mirror this for us. And what I mean by that is a cat or dog. Let's say I have a cat that and I tell it, don't pee on the carpet. Okay, so I'm telling it, don't pee on the carpet, but the picture created is pottying on the carpet.
Mhm.
And so then maybe I start saying, okay, we potty in the litter box. Thanks for pottying in the litter box. But then if I walk down the hallway and I look at the carpet and I'm expecting to see that it's been pottied on,
Uh-huh.
that's still putting that picture out there. So the animals have a really good way of reflecting back to us what kind of pictures we're putting out in the world. Are we being true to our word?
Ooh,
Or
that's deep. That's good. I like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, are we putting out there what we want or what we don't want? And because the words have meanings, they make the pictures and the feelings that that we put out there. And if we can learn with our animals, and I'm not perfect. I still tell them not to do something or to stop doing something, but you can't negate the picture by you saying don't or stop or something like that. You need to actually remember what you want. So in a way, yes, they can. But and then also looking at the patterns. So those patterns of our thoughts, those patterns of the words that we use, you know, they can help us clear that up. And then deceased animals. So I used to actually have a class. I don't teach it anymore, about our animal allies, because I've talked a lot with animals that have passed on, and they're always here for us.
Yeah.
So if you have a question, if you need help, get quiet and meditate and talk to them and ask them. It's like, I need your help. I
Mhm.
actually used to call on my dead dog to help a lot with finding lost animals, because it's like,
Ooh.
I don't know where this animal is,
Mhm.
you got to help me. So
That's
yeah,
great. Yeah.
yeah.
My deceased cat was the one that pottied on the carpet, and so so when I meditate, I'm like, "Oh, I'm so grateful I don't smell potty on the carpet anymore."
That's right.
It's so funny. My cat right now is just trying to hack up a hairball. I'm like, "What are you trying to tell us, buddy? Like, be
Oh,
quiet over here." I don't know if you can
something
hear.
to say.
Yeah, he had something to say, and so it's kind of funny, but I love that, how our animals, and I tuned into that too. I listened to a book, The Divine Matrix by Greg Braden, and he talked about that. He talked a lot about how our animals will mirror things. People too, people, but
Yeah.
our animals play a huge role in that. And like you, I work with EFT tapping and the emotion code, and oftentimes I can recognize when I'm working with someone and they'll at the end of the session, they'll say, "Do you work with animals?" And I said, "Actually, I just worked with your animal when I'm working with you," because oftentimes when you're healing that person, the animal will then reflect back,
Yes,
right?
yes,
The things
yes.
that have shifted and changed.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's
So I love that. Well, Karen, this has been such a fun conversation. We went from money to pets, and
it
this is
has.
great. And I love how they're all interconnected, and that's what we talked about in the show. So, can you share with us some of the services that you provide, and how can people connect with you?
Oh, absolutely. So actually, there's one that I I it's animals, but it's wildlife. So we talked about the connectedness, and I take people on safari because I believe that getting out into the plains on the savannah, it's an easier way to help get into that connectedness with all life. So sometimes when we're in the city and in life and so much going on, it's like sometimes we just got to get away and then understand what it feels like and then work on how to bring that back into our everyday life. So that's one of the things I do.
Oh,
I do 1 or 2 safaris and other wildlife trips a year. And
safaris to where?
then,
In Kenya?
yeah,
Nice.
well, right now in Kenya, but I'm actually also, so I've been doing several in Kenya, but I'm talking with another tour company about doing trips in Bali and India and
Ooh.
Costa Rica and some other
Mhm.
locations. So, and with the gorillas, I really want to go do the gorillas. But
Yeah,
anyhow,
that's amazing.
yeah. So I'm excited about that because I think that that can really help spark a transformation for those you know, that are interested. And it's also fun to look at the animals.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
And I
and
think that can enhance your intuitive abilities as well. I know I've had some friends, I go out, I do a lot of Sasquatch research on the side. I mean, living here in Washington, I do a lot of that. And, I take my friends who are, Lakota Native Americans, and their trackers and whatnot. And it's funny how each of us has different abilities that are stronger than others. And we tune in to this information that comes through, and boy, do we have fun, and we lose track of time half the time. We're just in this different frequency when we're out in the woods. So I do feel when you take people out in nature, it naturally raises your vibration. And it's amazing what can take place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's very cool what you do. That's awesome.
It's fun. That's my sidekick. That's what I do on the side. I mean, it's funny. I've been on a few podcasts about it, and people are like, I want to hear more about that. And I'm like, okay, so that's kind of just my fun time.
Right. Well, but it's your fun time, but look, but it's connecting you to source. And so it's, you're in that joyful state, that natural state out in nature. So of course, everyone's attracted to it.
Yeah. And it's fun. And you begin to realize, okay, I was out researching Sasquatch, and now I'm speaking to the tree people. I'm like, where did this come from? So it's kind of funny when your clairaudience kicks in, you don't really know what's going on. You're like, but it's fun. It's just it just makes hiking so much more exciting. And I'm sure you can appreciate that living in Seattle.
Yes, that's fantastic. Absolutely. And then also, I also do classes. You don't have to come on safari if you want to work with me. I don't have a class coming up until July, I believe it is, but anything can be found on my website, revkarencleveland.com. So
great.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds fun. I mean, I choose the safari. I think that sounds really exciting.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's fantastic. That's why I do it. So, I mean, it's amazing. So here, let me tell you a little story quick. I thought I was going on safari, and the first time I went, I thought I was going to go on safari, see everything. I wanted to connect with the land. I didn't have too high expectations of what animals I'd see, although I wanted to see everything. And I'd come back, I'd show people my pictures, and it's like, okay, that's it, now on to the next thing. But it didn't happen that way. Every day was more magical than the last day. And at the end, I was talking to the guide. It's like, I've got to bring people back here. So, how are we going to make this work? What can we do? So, yeah. So now I go, I mean, COVID, kind of
strain on it. Yeah.
Yeah. But now back to going every year.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, thank you, Karen. This was such a fun show. I love all of the different topics that we talked about, and the energy that you're bringing into the world. This is super exciting. And I think it's fun when we actually begin to realize that we can shift. We can shift ourselves from the inside, which then will ripple out to our external, world. And once we realize that, it's like this light bulb goes off inside of us, and we're like, oh, imagine the possibilities that we can create. Right. And so you're taking people to Kenya. I mean, I bet you wouldn't have thought that 5 years ago, or however long, that you'd be taking people to Kenya to assist in their healing process. I mean, it's just amazing what things we can do when we put our energy and focus towards it.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed this. It's been a lot of fun.
You deserve to navigate your life in alignment with health, happiness, and abundance. To learn more about the services that I provide, including Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis, EFT tapping, and the Emotion Code, visit my website at www.theexistentialempath.com.